Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging into a really fascinating mix of sources. We've got public health, national politics, global geopolitics. Quite the range.
It really is.
And our mission, as always, is to cut through the noise, try and connect some dots, and, help you get truly well-informed.
It's a rich collection, definitely. Lots of contrasting narratives, some things that genuinely made me look twice.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at, scientific studies that maybe challenge what we thought we knew, getting into the weeds of political debates, and trying to unravel an international mystery or two. And what's striking, I think, is how these different areas, they often highlight similar themes, about information, power, how things are perceived.
Exactly. So get ready to question some assumptions, maybe uncover some eye-opening facts. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Okay, first up, news from the Netherlands. A new round of COVID vaccinations is set to begin September 15th. But this is happening alongside some, pretty compelling, maybe even unsettling findings from a Japanese study.
Ah, yes. The headline alone is quite something.
It is. The more doses you get, the sooner you're likely to die. That definitely grabs your attention, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And it raises, some big questions about the data. Dr. John Campbell, he's a PhD in nursing, he did a really meticulous analysis of this peer-reviewed Japanese study.
Okay.
And it wasn't small scale. We're talking 18 million people involved.
18 million. Wow.
Yeah. And the findings are pretty stark, especially when you compare Japan with other places. They administered a lot of vaccine doses, some people getting up to 8.
8 doses?
8 doses. And what followed was reported excess deaths running at 24–27%.
Which is much higher than here.
Significantly higher. The Netherlands saw maybe 10–13%. So yeah, a big difference.
Okay.
And crucially, Japan has this really robust national statistics system, right? It allowed researchers to pinpoint that these excess deaths were happening mostly in the vaccinated group.
Not the unvaccinated.
Not the unvaccinated. Which, directly challenges that narrative that maybe excess deaths are just down to long COVID or other general health issues.
Right.
The study seemed to show a cumulative risk. Basically, the more doses someone got, the higher their likelihood of death seemed to be.
And was there a time frame?
Yes. Specifically, a significant number of these deaths occurred between 90 and 120 days after vaccination. To put a number on it, the chance of dying for someone vaccinated in this study was found to be 4 to 4.5 times higher than for an unvaccinated person.
4 to 4.5 times higher. That's substantial.
It is. Now, the causes of death varied, heart attacks, brain infarctions, strokes, basically. But they explicitly excluded deaths directly from COVID itself. About 10% were ruled out on that basis.
Okay.
Now, there was one potentially, let's say, positive finding from this specific study. It suggested the risk of excess death seemed to decrease after about a year post-vaccination.
Okay, so it wasn't indefinite, according to this data.
According to this data, yeah. But then you have to broaden out again, think about potential long-term effects. There are these ongoing concerns, for instance, about inflammation.
Right, caused by the vaccines or even by COVID itself.
Exactly. And the worry is that this inflammation could suppress T cells, the killer cells your body uses to clear out cancer cells.
So, okay, you have this huge study, 18 million people, peer-reviewed Japanese data showing this link, this time frame.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I mean, why is the Netherlands moving ahead with a new vaccination round? Why aren't we seeing this kind of transparent, large-scale data discussed more openly elsewhere?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? What are the structural issues or maybe political pressures stopping bodies like the EMA from really tackling these findings head-on publicly?
Yeah. It's critical information for people to have, especially with new campaigns starting. It really highlights this inertia you sometimes see in public health policy, doesn't it?
It does. Once a course is set, changing direction, even with new complex data.
Yeah.
Especially data that challenges the main story. It's incredibly difficult.
Okay, speaking of challenging narratives and power structures, let's shift gears. Dutch politics.
Right. Tumultuous is the word.
Yeah. And migration is just dominating everything, particularly around Minister Mona Keijzer's stance on housing priority for status shooters, asylum seekers with residency.
Yes, a hugely charged issue. Strong feelings all around.
So what's the core clash here?
Well, you've got Keijzer from the BBB party. She's a demissionary minister, meaning her government resigned, but she's still handling day-to-day stuff.
Right, caretaker mode.
Exactly. She wants to end the automatic priority for status shooters in social housing. Her idea is, okay, no automatic priority just based on status, but people in genuinely dire need could still apply for urgent housing.
Okay, so a change, but with a safety net.
Kind of. But then you have the PVV. Their MP, Jeremy Moyman, got an amendment passed in the second chamber, the lower house.
And that says?
Much stricter. It says status holders should never get priority. Not even in urgent cases.
Never.
At all. That's the amendment. And that's where Keijzer says, hang on, this is probably discriminatory based on nationality. It'll get struck down in court.
I see.
She's quite explicit about targeting what she sees as unfairness. You know, the example often used is a single Syrian man getting housing after maybe 2-3 years, ahead of Dutch youngsters on waiting lists.
Right. And she's pushing back against Wilders.
Yeah, she calls his criticism a campaign game, basically saying, I'm actually doing what your voters want.
So legislatively, this is messy. The second chamber passed the PVV amendment, but the first chamber, the Senate, has doubts.
Exactly. So Keijzer's walking this very fine legal and political line. But what's really interesting here, maybe, is looking at the PVV itself and its relationship with Europe.
Ah, because they used to be all about Nexit, leaving the EU.
Right. But if you look at their current program, no explicit mention of Nexit. It's gone quiet.
Interesting. So what's the strategy now?
Well, Wilders is suggesting they can achieve an asylum stop within EU rules. He points to Article 72 of the EU Treaty, the VWEU.
Which allows?
It allows countries to take national measures for public order or internal security. He's saying, look, Austria and Germany are doing similar things.
But doesn't that still mean that EU courts could have a say?
Implicitly, yes. Someone has to judge if those measures are valid. And previous Dutch attempts to get migration opt-outs within the EU, they failed.
Right.
So now Wilders is talking about using the Dutch veto power on other EU stuff as leverage to force an asylum opt-out.
Is that realistic, or is it just about looking more acceptable, more salon-fähig, as they say?
That's the big question, isn't it? Is it a genuine path or a strategic repositioning?
And you mentioned shifts within the PVV, too. New faces.
Yeah, we're seeing some new names near the top, like Sebastian Stutler, Shanna Schilder, Annalot Lammers, who actually works at the IND, the Immigration Service.
Oh, interesting.
And longtime figures, really prominent ones like Flora Gama, Martin Bosma. They're not those top spots right now. It might signal some internal changes, maybe moving away slightly from the original hard line.
And meanwhile, Thierry Baudet from FVD got a motion passed about deporting criminal Syrian youth.
Yes, a surprising win for him. But again, you ask why only Syrians? And how much real impact do these motions have, given the bigger picture, the EU influence?
This brings us back to that feeling many people have, that national politics doesn't matter as much, that all the power's gone to Europe.
Yeah, there's a lot of cynicism. But Tom Denouillet argues, quite persuasively, I think, that voting isn't meaningless. National parliaments can reclaim power.
Like with Brexit or Trump.
Exactly. Or withdrawing from treaties like the UN Refugee Treaty or using Article 50 for the EU. The mechanisms are there. It often seems to be the political will that's lacking. Leaders maybe prefer to tinker rather than take bold steps.
So the takeaway for you listening is really understanding these layers, right? National, European, how they interact. That's key to actually engaging and holding leaders accountable.
Absolutely. Accountable for the narratives they spin and the policies they push.
Okay, from national power plays, let's zoom out. International stage. Narratives here are even more fiercely fought over, maybe.
Definitely. And initial stories can get completely overturned.
Which brings us to Nord Stream, the pipeline sabotage, September 2022.
Ah, yes. The mystery deepens.
Initially, it was almost unanimous, wasn't it? Politics, media, fingers pointing straight at Russia.
Overwhelmingly so.
But now, new information reported. German police apparently identifying 7 Ukrainian suspects. A commando unit.
And what's fascinating truly is the silence.
Yeah.
The almost immediate, widespread quiet from so many politicians and outlets that were so loud blaming Russia before. It's almost a textbook case of confirmation bias, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, when people get really invested in a group or narrative here, Russia as the aggressor, it becomes genuinely hard to accept information that contradicts it. Even strong evidence.
It creates that discomfort, cognitive dissonance.
Exactly, that mental clash. And often, the easiest way to resolve it is just ignore the new information or dismiss it, because accepting it might feel like, I don't know, betraying your side, your beliefs.
That's a really key point, the psychology of it. And it makes you think, Remember Joe Biden, Victoria Nuland, before the invasion, saying very clearly there'd be no Nord Stream 2 if Russia invaded.
Explicit warnings.
And the location, near Bornholm, that Danish island with a NATO base. How does an operation like this, commandos on a sailboat, supposedly at those depths, happen right under NATO's nose?
It stretches credulity for many people. That ridiculous story, as some call it, of 7 commandos on a yacht, it just doesn't quite add up in such a sensitive area.
Suggests something more complex.
It strongly suggests a bigger geopolitical game, maybe. A chess game, as you say. And perhaps this story is even a strategic diversion itself.
How do you mean?
Well, if Ukraine did do it, that could imply support, or at least knowledge, from bigger players like the U.S., which could massively shift public opinion, loyalty.
Right.
Some even speculate this new narrative might be groundwork. Maybe for a peace deal where Ukraine has to make concessions, sacrifice territory, perhaps?
A way to manage the narrative shift.
Possibly. And look at someone like Jan Paternotte, the D66 MP here. He was adamant it was Russia, still frames other things as Russian aggression.
Yeah.
But on this, silence.
Yeah.
His seeming inability to acknowledge this shift, it mirrors that phenomenon that some call the reversed complot denker. The irony being that those resisting the new facts become the ones questioning established truths just because the narrative changed.
And it's hard for anyone to shift, isn't it? In public discourse, you get these labels thrown around, wappy, poet and lover. It digs these deep trenches.
Dehumanizing labels, yeah.
Oh.
Makes pivoting incredibly difficult, personally and politically. Plus, there's money involved.
The aid to Ukraine.
Huge amounts pledged by countries like the Netherlands. Any major shift in the story could risk collapsing a whole house of cards built on the current understanding.
So what's the bottom line here for us trying to make sense of it?
It just shows how these big geopolitical narratives get built, how they're controlled, and how incredibly resistant they are to change, even when new evidence pops up.
So it challenges you, listening, to really scrutinize information, especially when there's a really strong, established story.
Exactly. And to think about the motives, the psychology, the politics behind the stories we're told.
Wow. Okay, from health studies to Dutch politics to Nord Stream. That was quite a journey. Definitely a lot to think about.
It really was.
We've seen just how vital it is to look past the headlines, haven't we? To really unpack the information we get.
Indeed. We've touched on how narratives get shaped, how our own biases, influence how we understand things, and how persistent digging, often by new media, can bring really important, sometimes challenging information out. Critical thinking isn't just about finding flaws, is it? It's about constantly questioning assumptions, including our own assumptions, and being brave enough to rethink things.
Right. So as you go about your week, maybe we can leave you with this thought to chew on. In this world just saturated with information, where the main stories often seem set in stone, how will you choose to light up your own understanding? What narratives are you willing to really challenge for the sake of getting closer to the truth, to deeper insight?
A good question to ponder.
Thank you for diving deep with us today.